What did you like about playing with Thielen Diggs? Because I've been lucky enough to cover their full emergence. I mean, when I got here, Diggs was just coming off a decent rookie season, and Thielen was as far as I knew when I got here, a special teams guy.
Mankato State.
Yeah,
finest.
Who's this punt gunner that now has 60 catches and is beating people down the sidelines for touchdowns? And it was amazing to watch in 2016 when those two guys emerged as stars in the league.
Yeah, I think the one thing I loved about them and I respected about them was that they were so competitive and that they never took plays off. I played in systems that were with guys and receivers that were kind of like, hey, do I have to do anything on this? No. Okay, well, I'm not going to do anything then. And you'd be like, so you're not going to contribute anything to this team other than your own catches. That is selfish. But those two guys, run plays, they're in blocking. When they're not getting the ball, they're running around trying to help. And that's the one thing that as a player you can respect about other players is they know they're not getting the ball. They know they have nothing to do with the play, but they're going to put their head into somebody and go 100 miles an hour. You can respect that.
What I've been amazed by is in training camp, Stefon Diggs competes as hard as he does in games. And that concerns you a little because, don't get hurt, sir, because that would be problematic for this team. But he abuses Xavier Rhodes out there, and Rhodes is very talented. And it's not just now when I think Rhodes is beat up. It's been in the past, too, when he's been great. He just smokes him on a daily basis. You're like, how does this guy do it? And his route running, his competitiveness, all those things. And then he and Thielen are both top 10 contested catch rate where they go up and get it. And so that's where I think, even though they both had great seasons fantasy-wise, statistics-wise, in terms of the yards per catch, they were down. I think they were throwing a lot of short passes to Thielen and Diggs last year when you're going to have to find ways to get those guys going down the field.
No, I agree. And that's a big reason where Dalvin's going to come up. You need to influence those safeties. You can't have guys playing too high the whole day because that's just going to ruin your chunk plays. You need to get the strong safety in the box. The only way to do that is to get Dalvin loose. You start cutting him loose, the defense goes, okay, now we got to put another guy in the box because our defensive front cannot hold up. And if you can do that, you are going to – it's going to be a phenomenal season because I think Dalvin's primed right now to go. I think Thielen and Diggs on the outside, you got your two tight ends. If your quarterback can get over this hump, it's going to be fun.
With Thielen and Diggs, what do you know that I wouldn't know about them as people?
They're pretty open. They're hilarious guys. They're very competitive. They like to have a good time, but they love to work, and I respected that about them. And like you said, every day they were one speed. There was never a day that was like, was that Diggs jogging? Is that Thielen jogging? Those words never came out of your mouth. It was always like, I remember going back to the huddle when I was playing with them, and I'd be like, hey, I really appreciate that block you guys had. It really, and not that we really had many good run plays, but the ones we did, they would show up, and you would see them, working really hard, and they'd be excited, or they'd be like, dude, I got to crack that guy. They like to hit people, too, and that's what I love about a receiver, because most receivers are going to be like, nah, I don't want to put my nose in that business.
My sense for them is that they genuinely love being around each other, too. Yeah. That sometimes you see guys who, when cameras are on, microphones are on them, they're like, "Oh, I'm everybody's buddy," and then they're not really.
Right.
Or when they're at the podium, I'm a big leader guy, and you're like, not. "Are you? Yeah. Are you really?" Because usually they don't have to say that. But those two, they seem like they set the tone in the locker room.
Yeah, especially Thielen. He always, you looked at him and he was always a positive person. And I think positive people are natural leaders because they're always up and they're never down. And when you see them, you're like, man, that guy's always up. I love looking at him. He's smiling. He's telling jokes. He's having fun. And that's what Thielen was for that team. And I think that he's very underrated on this team.
Yeah.
Even from a leadership standpoint, because obviously everyone looks at you and they go, oh, your quarterback's your franchise. He's your leader.
Yeah,
I think Thielen's more of a leader than Kirk Cousins is.
That's where I wonder about that. When it's not your quarterback who is your best leader. Does that happen a lot?
All the time. Yeah, I've played on teams that there are a lot of guys that are leaders. I've played on teams that had a lot of older guys, so it was like one guy had to step up and kind of lead the group. And then I've been on teams with a lot of young guys where it was kind of like a lot of people had to step up and say stuff. But it's not always the quarterback. When Kaepernick was young, it wasn't him. When Alex Smith was old, it wasn't necessarily him either. It's just the question is, who's the guy that's going to take the beating in the meeting room? And for me, I always felt like that I would take the beating a lot of times because I was the undrafted guy, so the coaches would just cut into me. And so guys were always like, man, I appreciate you taking that for me. I'm like, yeah, no problem. They were going to give it to me anyways. Might as well just sugarcoat it a little bit. Who cares?
Yeah, it's always a tough thing as a reporter trying to figure out that dynamic exactly because sometimes how they want it to look in the locker room when reporters are there, it's not like you don't notice.
Right.
And they know when we're at practice and things like that.
And you feel the vibe. You get the vibe from guys. When they're around certain people, if they're if a guy's naturally really bubbly and then he gets around the leader and he's real quiet, that's probably not your leader.
Yeah.
Like, like a leader is somebody that lets you be who you are and they accept you for that. And they're like, hey, listen, he's part of our group no matter what happens. And that's some of the best leaders I've seen are guys that were like, no, man, be you. Go ahead, do you. And, you don't bother me. And I got your back.